Good evening, everybody, and welcome to I'm Listening, Stay Connected. I'm Listening is a 24/7, 365 initiative that works to destigmatize talking about mental health. If you want to join the conversation, you can do so by sending your questions into our Loveline IG DMs or by tweeting your question at the hashtag I'm Listening. We got a great show planned for you. Tonight we have Jimmy Wong and also Party Favor, who's a phenomenal DJ with residencies in many, many cities. Now, let's talk about mental health for a second. A lot of things are coming up that aren't familiar for a lot of individuals. And I'm reminding people that because of the pandemic and a lot of us being self-isolative with individuals that we're not used to spending so much time with. Again, we don't have access to our normal forms of coping mechanism or distancing, and God bless working. That also gives us time away from ourselves and our loved ones. So things are sometimes feeling amplified. Now, we want to take that seriously because our mental health matters, and we want to come out of the self-isolation feeling neutral or better and not necessarily traumatized. But I want us to also remember that we don't want to have really high conflictual conversations. So I'm talking to my patients that I'm still seeing in my practice about doing journaling, being self-reflected, going for walks, and really taking all the mental health things seriously because that's why we're here. I'm Listening, Stay Connected is about reminding you to talk to yourself and to others about what's going on in your mental health. That's how we're really going to get through this. And I want people to see the possible opportunity in this and not just bypass by reaching for these coping mechanisms that distract us. So again, it's a really powerful moment where we can sit with ourselves and really look at and address what's coming up in our relationships and our lives with our mental health, but also knowing that we want to be thoughtful about the boundaries we're holding with others. Because again, with self-isolating and not being able to necessarily leave the home or the access to our normal outer home coping mechanisms, we want to be very thoughtful about what we're creating at home. Got to keep that home life feeling good. But right now, let's welcome Jimmy Wong to the show. How are you, Jimmy?
Hey, how's it going? Good to be here.
I'm well. Look, you're a busy guy. You have coming up the live action Mulan, the animated Wish Dragon, Feast of Fiction, both the show and the Feast of Fiction kitchen cookbook. So first off, let's jump in and ask, how is your mental health right now?
You know, it's a really good question and one that I have been thinking about. I make a lot of content across a lot of platforms, right? And the thing that I'm always thinking about is how do I communicate to people that follow me, people that support me, the things that are running through my head. And mental health is one of those things that I think is just so absurdly important. The more that we stay at home and the more we feel like we are just in this crazy, I don't know how to describe it other than like everything feels like it's heightened. The more time we spend by ourselves or just with one other person, and we're not allowed that same sort of social interaction that we're normally used to. My mental health has been doing pretty good though. And I do attribute a lot of that to speaking to a therapist every single week. Trying to get on calls with friends, trying to find ways to connect as opposed to distance, and catching up and checking in with people, which I think is really important in this time.
Yeah, everything's really amplified. And I like you touching upon the socialization component. I think that's one of the things I'm trying to remind everyone. Our own governor said that we should be talking to 3 to 5 people a day. And as a therapist, I've been sharing that with my clients saying, get you out of yourself. It's also a way to connect. So have you been surprised at some of the people that you've been spending time with relationally via our technology?
Well, I certainly have found a more patient way to talk to my parents. That's for sure. That's a conversation I usually run away from as fast as possible. But when you don't have that much else on the docket and you don't have any excuse to be like, I got to go do this now, you kind of just let a conversation breathe a little more. You let yourself have a bit more time with someone. And that's made a huge difference for me. Just knowing that like, hey, I don't need to rush off anywhere. I live in LA and this is such a go city that being able to just sort of calm down and take a little bit of time to talk to someone, even if it is still ending up in an argument at some point with your parents, get to be on the other side of the argument afterwards when you.
Yeah. God bless the parental relationship. It often has that conflict. One of the things I saw you mention in an interview that I was reading is you talked about this inner dialogue you have that says you often aren't doing enough. How has that been coming up during the self-isolation?
That's a great question too. The inner dialogue I have is definitely something that was fostered from a young age, which is like, are you working as hard as you can? Are you making the most of the opportunities presented to you? My parents are immigrants, so they very much have that mentality built into them, which is we came here for a reason, to provide for a better existence and a better life for our family. And we're going to pass that sort of duty on to you as well. I think the best thing that we can do, and this is the message of the 2000s maybe, which is focusing on yourself. It's very hard to be in a situation like this and think, you know what, the best thing to do right now and to stay productive is to sit here and meditate for 20 minutes or to sit here and reflect on my year so far or go back and respond to the people that I've been meaning to. These are all sort of different ways I think that we can like have a good inner peace with ourselves, which is finding ways to talk to ourselves, finding ways to not have to pressure ourselves into equating success with things done.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to come out of this is us learning to find more comfort and value in just resting. Do you think that that's the most powerful thing that we can change in our culture coming out of this?
Well, I know a lot of people say that it's better to switch to a 4-day work week or to take more breaks during the day. I certainly know that this is a time where people are taking way more naps. But I do think that it is important just for us to slow down a bit in general. I've said in a couple of tweets and songs and stuff that this is a collective chance for humanity to take a breath together, which is something that almost never happens. There's no global event outside of like a world war that's happened recently, really, to make us all stop, breathe, reflect, and take the time to connect again with each other and find ways that we can be helpful and loving towards each other instead of combative or comparative. So I think one of the things that we should really pay attention to is the fact that we are now globally more interconnected than we've ever been, and we have the internet as well on top of that. As a result, you're going to see an explosion of voices online, and that doesn't mean that we need to be listening to every single one. But I think it is important to stop and realize that there is an energy around the world right now, and it's something that's very uncommon, and it's something that it's good for us to take advantage of and to think about and reflect on instead of just outright being like, well, it's happening, but I'm just going to retreat away into this thing or this bad habit or just play video games all day and never think about anything more than that.
Yeah, the possibility of a collective consciousness is so stunning to me. But unfortunately, we're seeing some splintering of that. And I know you wrote a song about that, the Chinese virus. Talk to us about the motivation behind that, because I know a lot of people that are Asian right now are struggling with some of the racism that's coming out of this.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where back in the day when something would happen, we'd react to it in an appropriate amount of time and then it would pass over. We're now in a situation where one thing is dominating the conversation constantly, and that conversation is always evolving. At first, we didn't realize the implications of what it would be to have a global virus like this that originated from a country. And now that we see it sort of spiraling out of control on social media, we see racist attacks against Asians on the rise across the world. I decided to write a song to be like, look, a virus is not limited to one race or person or people or gender. It's something that can affect all of us. And as a result, we need to stop doing one thing that is very common in politics, which is scapegoating. And that main thing is, I'm not comfortable with what's happening, or I don't want to shoulder any responsibility. So what I'm going to do is point the finger at someone else. And psychologically, it almost always works because people do want to share that. They also want to share in your anger, and they want to point at something else too. So it's something that I saw happen and is exploding in popularity again now with this virus, in terms of who can we blame for this thing that is affecting all of us, instead of taking a more calm and collective approach to it, which is how can we address this as a whole and make sure we're looking out for the people that are affected more negatively, instead of taking this moment to be selfish with our own emotions and our own responsibilities.
Wow, beautifully said. And I hope that that's something we can all start to kind of internalize and be different with each other. I wanted to ask you about the cooking show you do, Feast of Fiction. Where do you get those ideas from? Because I was flipping through and looking at some of the names and the ingredients and the styles. Where does that come from?
We've been very blessed to be able to have an audience and a fan base that is very accustomed to requesting things. And so in the comments, in messages on Twitter, on Instagram, we'll always have someone saying, hey, I saw your show. I really want you to make this. I've been thinking about this for years, ever since I first read it in the book as a kid. And thanks to them, we have now an exhaustive document that is pages and pages long to choose from every single week that we want to do something. And it's always great because you can keep up with pop culture trends. You can do something from The Mandalorian, or you can do something that harkens all the way back to a obscure animation from, the 1960s. And so we constantly have something to draw on at all times. And fortunately for us, we also have a lot of fans that are very passionate about the things that they love in life. So it's great to make someone's dreams become realized in a way that also has an education aspect to it.
Okay. Well, I'm a horrible cook and I'm a horror fan, so I'm going to tweet you some ideas and see what you can put together, okay?
Okay, great. I do love making something that looks like a pile of brains. So.
Challenge accepted. The bar is going to be high. So I know you have two projects coming out, the live action Mulan and also the animated Wish Dragon. I want to ask you about that, but before we do so, we're going to watch a quick clip of the Mulan trailer.
We have excellent news. The matchmaker has found you an auspicious match.
It is what is best for our family.
Yes, I will bring honor to us all.
Quiet. Composed. Graceful. Disciplined. These are the qualities we see in a good wife. These are the qualities we see in Mulan.
It is my duty to fight.
Yep.
Okay, that was a stunning trailer. I mean, wow. Talk to us about that. That was beautiful.
Yeah, so we filmed this all across the world. Disney sent, teams of cinematographers and filmmakers out to different parts of the country, in different parts of China and New Zealand. And we got to be on location all the time and be surrounded by hundreds of background actors, all adorned in period appropriate costumes. Everyone was, the amount of research and time put into this film is something, it's more than you did for your college thesis. That's for sure.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I think in one of the interviews, you were talking about living your dream. And I always think it's a beautiful thing to see someone able to fully embody all their goals and dreams. So with all the projects that are happening, coming out, do you feel that that's what's happening for you?
It's weird because if you asked me what my dream was 5 years ago, I don't think I would be able to answer with any amount of accuracy what's happening right now. I think the main thing to me that really encapsulates what living my dream is being able to do something that I know will reflect positively for people that are similar to me growing up. So I want someone to have a role model that they can look and watch a movie or a TV show and go, hey, that makes me think I can do something too. And that inspiration and the projects that I do and the focus on education I often have and the things that I create is something that I hope that I can always give to other people through my content. And being able to be in a movie like this that is so highly representative of an entire culture and an entire underrepresented group in Hollywood means that this is going to be that kind of movie where I think a lot of people will watch it, and especially people that are younger, especially young girls. And really anyone can watch it and go, hey, I'm inspired. I want to do something because of this. I want to change, or my dream has been sort of colored in a way I never thought was possible after watching this and experiencing this.
Beautiful, beautiful mission statement. So we had some questions that came in when we said that you were coming on. I'd love for you to answer them with us.
Sure.
And again, for those joining us, if you want to join the conversation, you can do so by tweeting your question to #I'mListening. This question asks, as a Chinese American, I've had to deal with people avoiding me and bashing China all over the internet. Feels like we're seen as lepers. It's depressing me. Any thoughts on how to deal with when the world feels like it's against you?
Okay, this is a great question, and it's one that I've dealt with a lot as well, but in a slightly different form. They always say that if you get 100 positive comments on a YouTube video, you're going to pay attention to the negative over the 100 that are positive. I can assure you, I can guarantee you that there are more people supporting you in the world right now than there are against you. However, the people that are going to have a negative outlook, the people that are going to want to scapegoat, or the people that are going to want to throw anger towards someone else, they're going to be much more incentivized with the energy that's building within them to vocalize that more than someone that's trying to be supportive. Because in general, we see being supportive to someone else as something that we don't outwardly do. It's not encouraged to always compliment someone, right? But we do very easily vocalize our angers, our upsetness at the world. And by the virtue of that emotion being one that's easier to come out of our bodies, essentially, you're going to experience a lot more of that online, especially if you're searching for it, especially if you're leaving yourself open to that. So I would say try to control how open you are to certain voices in the world, and just imagine focusing on just the positive and looking for the positive. And I can assure you that you are going to find those voices out there and be encouraged by that as well. So just try and shift your focus a little bit and see what that does for you.
Beautifully said. And I have one final question for you to answer with us. This one asks, I love your cooking show. I've been told cooking is a great stress reliever. I've been so overwhelmed lately, so I'm trying out cooking, but I don't know where to start. Where do you find inspiration for your cooking, and where should someone start when they're first getting into it?
Great question. Okay, we all grew up somewhere, and we all have food that we ate when we were kids that we love and can still taste if we think about it hard enough. try looking there first and looking online for recipes in that world, whether it was the food your mom made or maybe it was something you even got at a fast food restaurant. There are tons of recipes out there. And if you just add the word simple in front of the thing that you're trying to make and then recipe. So if you wanted to buy a simple burger recipe or a simple noodle recipe, you're going to find tons of things out there, especially ones that are catered towards easier or chefs that are just getting their start. And don't worry, no matter what you make, it is your creation at the end of the day, and it's probably still going to taste great. So just put your heart into it.
Oh, I love that, because whatever I make is going to be a hot mess, but my heart will be in it, so it'll be good. Jimmy Wong, thank you so much for being a part of the show, and thank you for everything you're doing. Have a great rest of the year.
Thank you. Much appreciated. You too.
Well.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I love that. So much positivity. I mean, and such good advice as well. It's interesting what we put out there on the internet. We're watching a lot of things go viral that have a negative slant, but at the same time, there's some things that are very positive. Lean into those, focus on those. But y'all, be thoughtful about what you're putting out there. Don't you want your legacy to be about putting some really positive things out there? I have a question. This one came in. Again, if you have a question, you can do so by sending them into our DMs on our Loveline page or by tweeting at #I'mListening. This question asks, my boyfriend and I have never done long distance before, and we're having to self-isolate separately. He started acting more distant lately, and when I ask him about it, he says he needs time to figure himself out. I'm shattered. Well, first off, I'm really sorry to hear that. It sounds like the relationship is something that this individual is moving away from. It might not be working for them. Listen, long distance is hard. In normal times, it's hard. We make the best of it we can. Try to get a little eye contact with the technology. And that's one of the things I'm reminding people. Sometimes things can feel like they're not working because we feel a little distant. We don't feel the presence we need. And so I've reminded people, texting's great, phone calling's great, but try some FaceTiming. I think the face-to-face eye contact is really helpful. It's really healing. It makes us feel like they're a little more present. And it's one of the more powerful things that makes us actually feel like we're connecting with someone, but it does sound like they're possibly drifting apart in a way. So you got to have one of those really honest conversations and find out if it's something that's solvable. So kind of ask that. And I'm, fingers crossed. Now's not a time that a lot of people want to be going back on those apps and trying to start dating again. Although I have a lot of clients that are on them, because why not do some old school courtship right now? All right. Right now we're going to be joined by Party Favor. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, what's going on? I'm, doing as best as we can out here.
Yeah,
so,
that's my first question to everyone. How's your mental health right now?
It's funny. It's weird to say. It's actually, I think it's been the best it's been in a long time. I'm touring around constantly, and I'm getting no sleep, and I'm running around like crazy. And this has been the first time for me that I've actually been able to slow down and kind of reassess everything. So weirdly, it's been kind of a blessing in that sense. So. Yeah.
I love hearing that from you. I'm glad you're calming down, because I was looking at your bio and everything you're doing. I got a little overwhelmed. You have residencies in Vegas, Miami, and Atlantic City. I'm a Philly boy, so I'm glad you're nearby. New EPs dropping soon. And I thought this was really interesting. So you've been putting out music under the heading of Isolation Beats. I like that. And you said that for the first time, you're putting out some things that are more euphoric and uplifting. Talk to us about that part.
Yeah. So, I think from when I started, I kind of had a specific sound and a specific genre that I was kind of playing into. And a lot of my music is very, very good for the club. It's good for dancing. It's good for whatever, but it's kind of, I don't often allow myself to kind of try different genres or different things. And for me, I've always considered myself a very, versatile producer. And so for me, it's kind of been nice to kind of just make stuff and not worry about, what a label will think or what even my audience would think. I'm kind of just making music for myself and then showing my fans and being like, hey, this is what I've been working on. So it's been awesome.
And 2019 was a huge pivotal year for you. Do you feel like this year is going to keep that momentum going, or are you going to kind of back off and rest? I mean, you started the show by saying you're breathing a little bit.
Yes. Contrary to the fact that I talk so fast, I apologize. But
That's okay.
I think we will. I mean, I think it's really just going to be whenever this stuff starts to come back. I mean, I'm in a job where who knows? I work in a job where we're putting people together, all the time. So it's like you're with hundreds of people any given night, and so I think it's really going to depend on all this. But I think all I can do is continue to work, get better at music, and yeah. So,
and how do you think club culture might shift as a result of this? Because, talk about it's a large gathering. You're in close proximity to people. How do you think that might change? And are you nervous about going back into that?
I think we are. I think everyone should be. I think everyone should be a little nervous in terms of, I think we all need to take a better look about, I mean, I think everyone's even just rethinking, shaking hands, things like that. But for me, I think being around people like that, I think that's how music is best enjoyed. And so I think that it's a necessary thing. But I think that going forward, people are going to be a little more cautious about, for probably better, but about how clean is this place? What are the measures that are in place to and might even demand those things. So I think that there's going to be a lot of changes going forward, and I have no idea what that means or what it's going to look like. But all you can do is just try to adapt and go with it. So.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Georgia is possibly reopening a lot of things like gyms and hair salons by the end of the month, and I don't think I'm ready for it. I'm not going to be shaking hands or touching anything.
Yeah, I mean, here in California, it's crazy. I mean, when you walk around, everyone's wearing masks. It's and it kind of feels like the new normal now. And now it would almost feel weird to walk outside without one. I think that it started getting used to it. And yeah, I like you said before, I play in Vegas, so I'm interested to see, because Vegas is going to open up, I think, in May. At least that's what they're saying. But that's a place that's you're packed together no matter what. So I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, it's wild to see the pictures of the empty streets in both New York and also places like Vegas. It's mind-boggling. So what do you think has been most helpful for you right now? If people wanted some tips from you as to how to kind of survive what's happening right now, what did you learn in your own life? What would you offer them?
I feel like this is the perfect time if you have a hobby that you can do at your house to learn that. So for me personally, when I was younger, I learned Spanish in high school and I got pretty fluent in it, and I completely forgot because I stopped using it. And I've always wanted to relearn, and I keep being like, oh, I'm going to do it. And then I always kind of put it off. And so this is kind of now my excuse. So I'm Rosetta Stoning. I'm relearning Spanish. So that's one thing. And then I've been cooking more, which I think is everybody can do, in moderation. Nice healthy meals. So yeah, those two things have been fun for me, because I've been, I don't get to do that a lot because I'm always traveling a lot and eating on the road. So
yeah, home cooked meals. That's a good one. So you referenced in on one of your socials about setting up, I thought this was interesting, so I wanted you to speak to this, about in OnlyFans, but for pet pics. What is that about for you?
I mean, I think this is Loveline, I guess, so it doesn't matter. But I think like OnlyFans, people finding ways to showcase themselves online, and I thought it just the irony of I think we all love to look at cute animals and pictures, and so I thought it'd be great to maybe make one that's just people can tune in and like it's like that one guy. There's some guy on Pornhub or whatever that he does like wholesome videos.
Oh,
on it.
right. Yes. Yes.
I'm sure you've heard of this, yes. But something like that, where you go in thinking one thing and you're getting very wholesome content. So
you're gonna let some people down with something like that. But I'm all about it. I just started an IG page for my cat. I don't know if the world really needs to see all that, but I thought, what a good time for that,
I feel like there's always an audience for cats and dogs. Can't go wrong.
I love that. So we had some questions come in when we said that you were coming on the show. I'd love for you to answer them with me. This first one asks, I'm feeling pressured by everyone from my label, from my label to fans to release music. I have a lot of downtime right now, but I'm not feeling it. I don't want to disappoint, but I'm just not in the creative space at this moment. How can I let go of worrying about letting others down or not meeting those expectations?
That's a good question. I mean, I think for me, what I found, and I can only speak personally from my experience, is that my best music has always come from moments whenever I'm not overthinking it. And I think that in this world, in any industry, it's kind of easy to overthink things. And that's why I was kind of going back to, we were talking about these isolation beats. This has been some of the most fun and creative, that I've ever been. And I think it's because I've allowed myself to kind of take back the constraints that I would normally put on myself mentally and outside noises, and then just kind of say, hey, this is me, this is my artistic output right now, and this is what's coming out of me right now. And it's been really nice because it's kind of reset the way I even just think about, producing music and listen to music and everything like that. So I think that in terms of, worrying about, the money aspect is the hard part. How do we make money? How do we do all these things? But, in terms of a pure artistic standpoint, I think if you can try to turn off the outside noise if you can, and then just make your music, do your thing, and try to make it for you first and foremost, and find that love that you have for the music, that got you in here in the first place. I think it's easy to lose that when when you get in the rat race of everything. So.
Beautiful, beautiful. We have another one. This one asked, I don't know how to handle the financial stress of having no income while venues are shut down. For a lot of us who make money off shows, this is a disaster. How am I supposed to start a new career when music has been the only thing I know? I'm worried if I start a new gig, my music will take a back seat. Any advice? I like that. People are afraid of kind of leaving the core passion they have. Can one just leave music behind like that? What would you say to that?
I mean, that's a phenomenal question. I think, I always kind of joke with my fiance. I'm like, hey, if this keeps up, I'm going to have to go start sending my resume out. But I've got about 8 years of no experience in a lot of the job areas because I've been doing this myself. And so, you can put on there traveling the world and as the DJ and producer, but it's kind of, that's not necessarily the usual real world applications that they're looking for. But I think, a lot of us we don't have, our income comes from touring and playing shows. And I think that, once again, kind of going back to the last question, finding ways to, okay, I can look inside myself. How can I benefit in terms of learning new, music production skills, learning more musical theory, learning more about being a better producer so that whenever you come out of this, we can continue to do better. But I think in terms of paying the bills, things like that, I mean, streaming's really big right now. So if you're able to start building a following doing that, whether it's you producing music or you showing off a skill or a hobby you have. I know that I've started doing some streams where it's been really fun to kind of stream and do almost virtual concerts for people. I'm going to start doing more streams where I'm have people tune in and they do watch me produce a track and I talk about it,
Wow.
And I wouldn't say that I'm looking for money for that, but there's definitely avenues where you can, monetize that. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's hard because it's like, I wish there was I don't know, a snap my fingers answer here for that. And it's different for every single person. That person who asked that question is going to be different than my experience. So yeah,
like what you said, you got to get creative. I mean, the music is the core, but like you said, there's other ways to kind of monetize that. Talking of music, tell us a little bit about the new EP, the single Once More. Talk to us about that. What are we expecting?
Oh, I'm super excited about this EP. Luckily got all the production done before this whole thing happened. And it's actually going to come out basically a week after my album that came out last year. And it's 5 tracks, though obviously the one you mentioned, Once More, is on there with Georgia Koo. That's my second time working with her, and she's amazing, super talented. And then the other 4 are just really unique, fun tracks that I think are going to showcase people, my sound as it's evolving. And I think also my versatility. There's kind of a down-tempo record. There's some, big festival stuff on there. There's some weird experimental stuff on there. So it's good. And also Young Pinch is on the EP too. He's phenomenal. So that's a fun one. It's called Alien Party, and it's very weird. So I'm excited for people to hear that. Yeah.
Right on. Congrats. I'm glad you're thriving, and I look forward to seeing you in Vegas, man. Be well. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Have an awesome night.
You too. Thanks.
I love that. And I think that that's really powerful. Whatever you're trying to do, you have to get creative now. Ways to just occupy yourself, distract yourself, maybe go deeper into the work that you do, and also find new ways to kind of bring that to the world. And sometimes it can be monetized and turned into a new hustle. We're all doing the best we can. Again, if you want to join the conversation, you can always do so by tweeting a question to #I'mListening or by dropping your questions into the DMs on our Loveline IG page. I have another question that came in. This one asks, I'm trying my best to stick to a routine and go to bed and wake up at the same time, but I haven't had luck getting back to sleep. Every night I lay there for hours. How do I figure out what's going on? I'm just living life tired at this point with no relief. Yeah, there's an interesting level of exhaustion that a lot of us are encountering that we're not necessarily familiar with. And that's part of how I'm trying to frame what's happening in this pandemic with self-isolation is things are feeling amplified. New mental health concerns or issues are rising to the surface. So we have to be careful. We have to be compassionate with ourselves, know that this isn't forever. And also possibly, as Jimmy Wong was talking about, circle back to some therapy. A lot of therapists are offering therapy at this time, but as far as sleeping, it's really about doing what we call good sleep hygiene. Turning the technology off about an hour prior to bed, making sure you're not looking at something that we call activating or stimulating or distressing prior to going to sleep. letting your body kind of soothe itself. So you want to start a routine. Some people it's drinking tea, others it's going for a walk. Some it's about going into the bath or turning down the lights. But more importantly, we know that if you're not falling asleep, get out of bed, go do something, and return when you are feeling tired, because just laying there will make it harder for you. But wrap it all up in some care and compassion, because again, this isn't forever, and things will settle down and we'll go back to a little bit of normal when we get out of this. So hang in there. All right, I have another question. This one asks, I live in Florida, and I'm freaking out about how my state is handling the pandemic, knowing a majority of people are not staying home. How do I find peace of mind when I know that the outside world is more hazardous to me? Yeah, this is interesting. I was just watching on the news today, all different states are going through different things. Florida has reopened the beaches. Georgia at the end of the month might be reopening some movie theaters, hair salons, gyms. Kentucky has a battle waging there as to what's going to happen next. And yet today they had the highest rate of COVID infections and deaths that they've had yet. Denver has huge protests, and the nurses are out on the front line saying, we are still overwhelmed and you all want to go back to normal. Think about the impact on others. So a lot of us are in the same boat you're in. We are at the mercy of the perspective of others, but just know that the local governments, our governors, our mayors, they have our back, the Center for Disease Control. So, you got to kind of let go a little bit, lean in, but as long as you are following the rules, self-isolating, staying home, keeping 6 feet of distance, you will be well and you're following the rules. And we right now just have to kind of find some peace in that. So that's the best we can do right now. We got to be caring, compassionate towards ourselves and towards others. I wish everyone was taking this a little more seriously. I'm seeing people pushing back because they're ready to get back to their normal lives. I get it. I'm also eager to get back to my routine and my habits. I want to see the outside world, but I also know that everything I do is impacting those around me. And so I'm following the rules. I'm keeping the distance. I'm self-isolating, and that's what we all got to do. So buckle down, get some hobbies, and kind of settle in, folks. We got a little bit more time. We'll be back tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can check out the show on all the radio.com handles. And joining us tomorrow, we have Walking Dead's Daniel Newman and Dr. Daniel Amen. So join us for that. As always, thanks for hanging out with me, and you all have an awesome, awesome rest of your night.